All right, everyone. Good afternoon to everybody. My name is Adriana. I'm very pleased and happy to have here three great people to do our webinar today. For those who doesn't know me, I'm an associate at Tosini Freire Advogados in São Paulo, Brazil. And I'm also a co-chair of NISBA, New York State Bar Association, the Brazil chapter in the international section. So first of all, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today in this webinar. Today we are going to talk about iGaming sector in Latin and all over the world and also in Brazil. We have three amazing panelists to join us today in these discussions. Just some quick notes before we start. For those who doesn't know NISBA, NISBA is an association, a non-government association for lawyers and also for international lawyers. So if you are a lawyer that lives abroad, US, and even if you don't have the bar license, you are eligible to join NISBA to be associated in one of the chapters, in one of the groups that we have in the committees. You are more than welcome to do that. For those who are not aware of what NISBA can offer, I kindly invite you to join the website and take a look of the opportunities you have and how you can join in any of the chapters. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me on my LinkedIn or in the website as well. You have my information over there. So I hope you guys enjoy. Let's do a quick start. First of all, let me introduce you our panelists here. We have Beatriz Martonello, who is from Rush Street Interactive. Beatriz is the legal, LATAM, and regulatory affairs of Rush Street Interactive. Currently, Rush Street is operating in Canada, Colombia, Peru, and Mexico, and other countries. And she oversees legal aspects of the company throughout Latin America, including contracts, employment, data privacy, and so on and so forth. We also have Jessica Phil. She's from OpenBet. She's the Regulatory Affairs and Compliance Officer, Vice President, sorry, for OpenBet. She oversees licensing products, compliance, corporate governance, and all due diligence process in OpenBet. We also have here Jun Makuta. Jun Makuta is one of the partners at Tosini Freire Advogados. He's one of the heads of the iGaming practice here at Tosini, also responsible for the Japan desk and the infrastructure and energy practice at Tosini. Today, the topic we have to discuss here is the latest trends and expectations for the iGaming rules in Brazil and also in Latam and all the global impacts we have here for expectations for this upcoming year that's just started, right? Before we start our discussions, I just want to let you guys know we have a chat here available. I always want to say that. So you can see the chat down here in the screen. And put your questions if you might have during the webinar. Feel free to jump in the chat and put out your questions. We can go through the questions during the webinar, or we can do this afterwards, after the discussions. This is going to be a very easygoing discussion. I have some topics here for them to explore, to discuss, but the floor is open for them to explore any other topics that they might feel interesting and that might come up during the discussions, okay? So I will just give 2-3 minutes to each of the panelists to say a few words, and then we can jump in the discussions. Thank you. Beatriz, please.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Adriana, for your presentation and for the opportunity that you are offering to us. My name is Beatriz Martorello. I am a lawyer originally from Argentina. I moved to Chicago 10 years ago, and now currently I am the Vice President of Legal for Latam and Regulatory Affairs for Rush Street Interactive. That is an operator that we are publicly traded in the New York Stock Exchange. And we operate in the US in 15 states, in Ontario, Canada, Colombia, Mexico, and Peru. And we are in the exploration of new markets, including Brazil. Thank you.
Thank you, Beatriz. Jess?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Jess Fiel. I'm the Vice President of Regulatory Affairs and Compliance at OpenBet. OpenBet is a B2B sports betting platform and player account management provider. Been live all over the world for nearly 30 years now. Most of our customers come out of the UK and the EU, but we also have a very significant representation in North America, across Canada and the US as well. And we're also in Asia, and we are now excitedly live in Brazil and exploring other Latin American markets. It's a really exciting time for the business. We work with some of the biggest names in the industry, all household sports books that you've heard about and know about. And it's been a really interesting time with Latin America sort of regulating and changing over the last few years, and Brazil really leading the way, because we're sort of seeing, there's like the EU and UK structure for regulatory affairs, and then there's sort of the North American structure, and now we're seeing the LATAM personality come out. So I'm looking forward to the discussion today, and I think it'll be really interesting.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you, Adriana, for the introductions. Thank you very much, Nisba, for the opportunity to talk this very exciting topic. I'm personally happy with this opportunity because I've been trying to somehow talk to especially to those who are not familiar with the industry, because I think that whoever is not very familiar with this market tend to be not be so positive about the players, and about what we do. I think that as Jessica pointed out, we are seeing a very exciting moment right now. I think it's really rare for lawyers to see the birth of a whole industry since the very outset, and I have the privilege of being working with this industry for more than 5 years now, and actually for more than 7 years now. My personal experience with the gaming industry started with lotteries, which is traditionally was one of the only forms of gambling in Brazil, and it quickly evolved to sports betting and so forth. And so, yeah, it's really a pleasure to be here with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, June. Thank you, Beatriz and Jess. So to kick off the discussions, I would kind of provoke June that he already kind of touched on this point. Here in Brazil, we are having a bloom, right? A bloom of the industry, and we just got today is January 15th. We have 15 days of the brand new regulated market here in Brazil. So I just want to provoke you guys, and especially June, and see if you can bring us some insights on what's happening in Brazil now, and what to expect on this regulated market that just started here. We might know that we don't know what's the background of the audience, so we might kind of bring a few overview on the where we are and where we are up to now.
Sure. I will take the liberty to start talking from where we were, right? Because I think everything started in 2018 when sports betting was legalized, because by then it was an illegal activity. Only lottery and horse racing were basically allowed in Brazil. But everything changed in 2018 when the then president Michel Temer enacted the federal law in 2018, basically legalizing sports betting. But the law provided that the law itself should be regulated within a 4-year time, 2 + 2 years. But unfortunately, nothing happened during this until 2023, when finally a new betting law was enacted. It also introduced not only the sports betting, but also iGaming, which would be basically online casinos, and legalized both modalities of games in Brazil as a modality as a type of lottery. It may sound a little bit odd for non-Brazilian audience because lottery and sports betting everything is different, but because of a political decision, in order to facilitate the discussions, the government said that sports betting was a type of lottery in Brazil. So since 2023, we saw the creation of the regulator itself, the Secretary of Bets and Prize, which is part of the Ministry of Finance in Brazil. And then we had a very busy time starting in 24, because it was a year where the regulator started issuing a series of what we call portarias here. We usually translate it as an ordinance, but which are basically more detailed rules on what the federal law provided. But before 23, we also had a very important landmark decision issued by the Supreme Court in Brazil in 2020, basically allowing not only the federal government to operate lotteries, but also states to do that, because this was something controversial. But in September 2020, the Supreme Court finally decided that both the federal government and the state would be allowed to operate lotteries, and by consequently also sports betting and iGaming. So we started 2025 with the birth of this very active industry. It's a huge industry already. It's one of the biggest in the world. Brazil is already a multi-billion market. It attracted many operators from abroad. We already have very big operators from Brazil as well, and so the game just started, right? We will see a lot of things happening from now on, because as in any regulated market, regulation is something that changes from time to time to adjust itself to new practices, new technologies, and so forth. So we still have work to do. There are provisions that must be enhanced. There are other things that are really good. As a matter of fact, the government did a really good job, because Brazil is legalization of gambling is something that's happening globally. Brazil, as a matter of fact, started this a little bit late, but I think it resulted in an advantage for the country, because it had the opportunity to see the examples from other countries, what worked, what didn't. So as a result, we have a really good regulation in Brazil already. But as I mentioned, this is something that will still change from time to time. And this is something absolutely normal in any regulated industry. We see that like in toll roads, airports, capital markets. So any regulated industry suffer changes from time to time, and it will not be different with the gaming industry.
Yeah, and shifting a little bit to Latin and our neighboring countries, I'd like to hear a little bit more from the ladies, what their expectations for the upcoming year, and the new trends and everything that you see that might be popping up in 2025?
Yeah, I'll start just to sort of jump on what we were discussing where we are in Brazil today. I have been with OpenBet for 3 years as of this week. And the first meeting I had when I joined the company was about Brazil. And then I was sitting with some colleagues and things like that. One of my colleagues says to me, he goes, I've been in this business for for decades. He goes, we've been talking about legalizing sports betting and online casino in Brazil the whole time. He's like, I will bet you dinner it won't happen. Retire.
And you got a dinner.
But it goes to show you, right, that this has been a major priority for the industry for such a long time, and something we've really that the whole world has been watching for quite literally decades at this point. And secondly, though, but like Brazil is doing something really interesting here, which is taking it from a gray market to a regulated market, right? Other than Ontario, we haven't really seen a market of that sort of size make that transition, because at least in the US, it was from an unregulated illegal market to legal. And going from gray to regulated is in many ways, I think, trickier and for operators, for customers, for everybody involved, because you have a foundation in place and you're adding things to it. So it's been a really interesting experience, and I know we'll sort of get into the details of what that's been like. But it's hard to sort of underestimate the size and import of Brazil going into the regulated space and what it means for the sports betting and online casino industry. The size of the market, the type of bettors in the country, what their priorities are, and it being a very digital first market is important. So we're really excited about it, and I think we've already got one customer live and a couple more coming. So we're very excited about it. I will sort of leave it to Beatrice to sort of get into some of the other countries, but I'll just note it's as a compliance officer, it is gratifying to see a lot of these countries move into the regulated space, right? To sort of add a little bit more to add protections and drive revenue for their countries, because I think that's the right path to take.
Yes. Yes. We discuss and we explore Brazil for at least 3-4 years, waiting for this regulation. And we are very familiar with the ordinance that Shun mentioned. And we are very curious about how the market will develop and how will unfold. With so many licenses now, and with big companies, with big investments, with all the expenditures in marketing, that we know all these partnerships with media companies, etc. So we are very excited and very curious how we will be in Brazil in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. I think that will be a lot of moving parts. And also, we expect that the regulator does a good job about the gray operators, the black market, to see how they can work with all these issues that are so important for a company like mine, that we only operate in regulated markets. And we are really very concerned about the black market. So we are, for example, we operate in Mexico, and 60% of the market operates in the black market. So, and these things is very difficult sometimes to compete. Regarding other countries, I think that we have a very good map in Latin America of different regulated markets with different maturity. So Colombia, we have a much more mature market in iGaming, and the regulator changed many times. Sometimes when we don't have stability with the regulator, something that happened last year in Brazil, for example, or happened recently in Mexico, or in Coljuegos, for all the political factors that really impact the gaming regulator, and the changes in the tax authority, and all this fantasy that sometimes the tax authorities have, that this is a lot of money and they can get more tax from the operator. That we see in different countries. So in Colombia, we have a mature country, a mature market. We are number second as operators. We have more than 250 employees only in Bogota and Medellin, and we know really the market. We really know. What are the challenges? You ask, Adriana, what do you envision for 2025? Of course, it's the tax reform in Colombia. This last year failed the VAT that they tried to implement in the 19%, what could kill the industry really, and could incentivize the black market. Yesterday, Petro was the president of Colombia, was saying that he will support the tax reform. So this, we have huge expectations about what will happen. No, this could be very bad for the industry. This is about Colombia. It's very mature in other things, in responsible gaming. Mexico, the new president and the new regulator, they are really trying to attack all the corruption, all the things connected with anti-money laundering prevention, and they ask the operators to work on a regulation, online regulation. We don't know if the idea is to adjust the law that is from 1947 in Mexico, or the idea is really have a new regulation. So we are starting this process. We started last week. Argentina, they have the complexity that each province has their own regulations. So right now we have 21 regulations. So it's very confusing. They have different requirements. And we had license there. We got 3 licenses and then we gave up. It's very difficult to operate with so many different rules. But it's a market that is maturing. Province of Buenos Aires, where are 7 licenses only, is doing very well. They are managing the black market very well. They were blocking the black market, so really with a lot of success. And then last, Peru. Peru is a market that was regulated last year, and very interesting. Peru has a very seasoned regulator. The president of the Mincetur, Shuri Guerra, knows the industry, and this facilitates a lot. So for operators, for providers, it's very important when you have a regulator that understands really what is the business. If they don't understand the business, sometimes it's this delirium about they can pay more tax, the operators money, and then they finish in bad laws that you cannot implement. But with Peru, now the industry, and this is the challenge for 2025, there is a tax, the consumption tax, 1% on bet, that in reality, the impact on the NGR is 14-16%. It's not the 1%. Basically, we should withhold in each bet. So we are working with some organizations that showing all the operators. We are trying to see if we can, if the Minister of Finance can understand that this can also incentivize the black market, because when you will hold to the player the 1%, perhaps they will go to the black market. Black market, what means? You don't have controls. Minors can play. You don't have a responsible gaming. You cannot check your customer. You cannot have policies of anti-money laundering. This is very bad for not only for the industry, for the society and from the government, because they won't collect taxes either. So the trend that I see in LATAM principally is the tax and the lack of understanding how the business works.
Yeah, and I like when you say the lack of understanding how the business work, because especially being a Brazilian lawyer, especially in Brazil, I say that the regulator learns on the go. I think this applies to all countries because if you have a country in Latin, in Europe, in US that doesn't know or doesn't have the market regulated, of course the people that are working in the regulation, they must start from somewhere, right? And as a rule, you don't have like people that have the background in gaming and everything else. So I saw personally this happening in Brazil, and taking the advantage of this comment that you mentioned about like how to educate the regulators, right? One point that I would like to touch on is how the countries can adapt to international standards, especially those that are new in the gaming field. I'll give the example for Brazil, but then you guys can explore other countries all over the globe. But for instance, in Brazil, we are a highly regulated country in all aspects. For instance, in tax, we do have a lot of regulation coming up. We're not going to touch on tax because this is going to could be another webinar on how to deal with Brazilian tax in gaming. But I would like to provoke you guys to touch on these, like how could a newly regulated market do the best job on adapting to international standards? For instance, responsible gaming, preventing in bad practices or frauds and anything like that. So I think these standards that each country has to comply with, and they kind of like, I would not say they copy from the others, but they learn from the old guys, right? They learn for those markets that are more mature. How does the new markets can take advantage of that?
I'm happy to sort of start on this. That really sort of gets to like the existential philosophical questions of like why you regulate things, right?
Yeah.
Like,
why you create more problems, right?
Right. What is the public policy goals you're driving when you seek to regulate a business in your jurisdiction, right? And I think, US is probably comparable to what we've been experiencing in Brazil in a lot of ways, because after the court struck down the federal ban in May of 2018 in the US, we've had this just watershed of states that have legalized sports betting, and since then, and not online casino, just mostly sports betting, but now we have over 36 states that have created some sort of legalized sports betting, but they've all done it a little bit differently. They've all sort of taken a foundation and adapted it to what their priorities are. But that's because your regulators are only a piece of the puzzle, right? First, it's the lawmakers, it's the big picture thinkers who are in your legislature who write the enabling legislation, and that's where you find a lot of what is the priority for the market you're in. Is it player protection? Is it rooting out the illegal market? Is it driving revenue? And usually it's a combination of those three things, right? So the regulators are left with that framework to really decide how they're going to implement it day to day. And that's important. And I think all three of those things really drive policymakers to make the choice to move to a regulated market, because they see revenue leaving their jurisdiction. They see players being taken advantage of. We see it in the US all the time. There's been a lot of like negative media on the industry recently since the legalization rush. But if you read really close, like oftentimes you'll get stories that's like about this person's experience with problem gambling. But if you start reading between the lines and you're an industry person, you realize that person wasn't playing with a regulated operator. It was either before legalization took place, so it was an illegal offshore book, or it's still an illegal offshore book, things like that. So, as an industry, I think the biggest challenge we have when we move to a regulated market, right, is beyond just upholding those values that your jurisdiction has, is how do you convert your players? How do you educate your players and your bettors to know how to identify a legal regulated sports book or online casino and to make the choice to do it? Because I'm a believer that customers generally across the board, maybe not every single one of them, but generally would rather use a regulated operator because they feel safer and more secure. But they sometimes have trouble identifying that. And so it's been really interesting. And then you sort of look at Brazil and the incredible number of operators and even just applicants, right? That first deadline for applications, there were, I think it was I can't remember now, but I want to say it was like 170 applicants.
Yeah, almost
then
200.
On January, we're over 200 applicants now. On January 1st, we had like 70 go live. That's an enormous number, but that means that can be very confusing for players, and they need to sort of understand the process too. So it's been really interesting, and how do you, right? The whole industry has a stake in that and making it something that, you know, an improvement. And one thing I want to commend the SPA on is, you know, they've really done this digital first, right? They've really made this, and they've focused on where their bettors are, which is online. There's been a real eye towards some unique aspects of the Brazilian market, like, for example, one, using facial recognition on mobile devices for account access. Like, that is, I think, really one of the first of its kind to be a requirement, but it reflects the digital mobile first reality on the ground, and that's really exciting. So, you know, I have to commend SPA on sort of learning from everyone, and then really trying to mold their learnings from best practices to suit their constituents.
I know someone else wants to comment on that, June or Beatriz.
Well, I can take that. I mean, as I mentioned before, there's a lot to be done yet, right? Regulation itself must be improved. There are many things that are really positive. The facial recognition, for example, is something that Brazil pioneered, but there are also some adjustments that must be done, right? If we take, for example, conflicts of law, we see, as I mentioned, state. It's possible for operators to get state license as well, right? In principle, this is a super controversial matter, right? But in principle, what the Supreme Court intended is that state operators would be allowed to operate as long as the operation is limited within a certain state. So the license issued in a given state would allow the operator to operate in another state, for example. But this is something that must be let's say organized yet, because we see the situation of Rio de Janeiro, for example, which is currently battling against not only the federal government but with other states as well, about what's the limit of the state license issued by Rio, because until a few weeks ago, a state operator from Rio would be allowed to get bets from someone in Amazonas, for example, right? Someone from São Paulo. So the operations were not limited to Rio de Janeiro. We also have other very curious cases. For example, the situation of Bodó. Bodó is a really small city in Rio Grande do Norte, in the northeastern part of Brazil, with roughly speaking 2,000 people, population really small. But the city is issuing also a license, and this license will allow the operators to get bets from anywhere in Brazil. So this is something that must be organized. Ultimately, the Supreme Court will have to decide that, but this is just an example of what, in terms of regulation, what must be enhanced. Another example is, for example, it relates to responsible gaming. Although the federal regulator acknowledged the importance of the responsible gaming, the way that it was structured, it may not be effective, because if we take the example of the self-exclusion, for example, there is a specific ordinance about responsible gaming. It says that the player must have the opportunity to self-exclude, meaning that it wouldn't be allowed to put bets permanently or temporarily. But this is something that we would apply only to one sports book, right? So if we take if we take someone that it's problematic gambler, for example, he or she may opt out, decide that he or she wants to be excluded, but this decision would apply only for one company. So on the following day or on the same day, if he or she decides to continue gambling, he can just choose another operator. So we see a positive example in other jurisdictions where if he or she, if the gambler decides to self-exclude, then this decision would apply to all operators, not only for one operator, right? So those are examples of things that that may be improved.
Yeah, thank you, June. Beatriz, wanna bring something?
Yeah, you said how the new countries that are regulated can learn like international standards or best practices. So, for example, in Mexico now, the new regulator has to have like a workshop, big, like I think that they schedule like 4 meetings with all the operators, with providers, with the with AIEJA, that is the association that joined the different operators, and they want to learn. And I think that when the regulator, they have like a humble approach and to say, okay, we are new here, and before starting to write resolutions and put in more limits and try to restrict more, we like to hear from an open mind and perhaps also contact other regulators in other jurisdictions. I was in the SBC in Miami recently, and was very nice for other regulators to hear the experience of Argentina, City of Buenos Aires regulator, about how they block the black market, what type of partnership they needed to do with the Justice Department, with the provider. This was very like empowering because you show we made it. We found after years and years trying to solve this avenue. So I think that if we can, for example, Chile, we have some calls with would be the future regulator of the online market, because now it's only land-based casino, so you have one regulator for the land-based. They wanted to know from us what were the best practice, what things really work for the operator, but at the same time work for the players and protect what are our responsible gaming standards, etc. So I think that when we have regulators that they try to understand, all legislators, is what Jess say, start there. Sometimes you see laws like was with for example, with Peru, with the ISC, this tax, the consumption tax. Then when you try to put this, that in the law, you can read very nicely. But then when you try to apply in reality, distort totally, not only your financial, it's like the market. This is like, of course, will kill some operators, small operators, and or regulation about marketing in Colombia 2 years ago. These things when they are doing in a bubble, no, that is sounds very good theoretically, but you don't see them landing in practice. There where we have the problem. So I think that regulators more open-minded, legislators more open-minded, that they collect, that then they can make like a informed decision. Then they can decide. But first, collect information, learn from the industry, learn for everyone, and then land a good project that works for everyone.
Right.
Yeah, this is really important. Just before you go into your comments, I just want to take advantage of that. We got a question for you actually, so I'll just address it to you because it's connected to this topic, and then before we move on to other aspects. So Ana Carolina is asking you about under the US perspective, how the compliance hat, let's say, will apply the legislation and all the controlling features that you might have in a largely online operated market. If you can bring us some
this
comments
is
on
a good
that.
question, because it's one of my sort of favorite things to talk about with lawmakers and regulators. Going to Beatrice's engine's comment, right? A lot of regulators in new markets, Brazil included, but the US and Canada, you're sort of building the plane while you fly it. Trying to get things going, especially when you're under time constrictions that your legislation sets out in so many ways. And what I have found to be really going to that open-mindedness Beatrice was referring to, a lot of the regulators have a vision for what they're trying to accomplish, right? We want to show revenue, we want to show player protection, and we want to show, responsible operators, but they're flexible in the way you get there. So that's really the industry's role, is to educate them on like the different ways we can address their priorities. So in the US, right, you've got, over 36 states with legalized sports betting in some fashion. The vast majority of those are predominantly, if not exclusively, online. And so how do you do compliance with that? And interestingly, my point is always, I'd rather do it in the digital space than anywhere else, because I have all the data, I have the reports, our systems are built around the idea that this is going to be online, and that I'm constantly getting data and information and details about my players, their activities, their habits. And that's really important, because then I can constantly provide a view to my regulators on what our revenues are, what the high priority betting events were, what our downtime. We've never had, downtime, but sometimes certain markets go down. Why and how and when did that happen? It's much easier to keep track of it in the digital world in a lot of ways than the retail. So we like that space, because it's just the amount of data. But the flip side of that is, I'm sending a lot of data, and my customers are sending a lot of data to regulators. And what are they going to do with all of that? And how are they going to digest it all? Because they're limited too in their resources. So we try to really work with them to prioritize what's important, and then also explain what we have for them and things like that. I also think it's sort of, I don't think you can have a webinar right now without mentioning AI and machine learning, but that's one of the things that, we're very committed to, especially in the RG space, right? Tools that use machine learning and AI to study player behavior and identify trends in player behavior, and especially and intervene with players before they exhibit problem gambling, keeping them safe. The digital space just gives us better insight and better intel, and we're better able to protect our players that way. And I think that's a real selling point to regulators and compliance. But in terms of how we do it, a lot of tools, a lot of people, and a lot of diligence. It's a lot to keep an eye on, but that's why we're all here.
Yeah, amazing. And one comparison that I like to do, listen, you guys talking about this adaptation from the gray market to the regulated one, is like we have the fear that might comes up from the customers, right? So why should I, right, go into the regulated market since I'm doing everything good here in the gray market, especially from the tax perspective, for instance, right? And one comparison that I always like to say is that we had the very same discussion in other industries, for instance, in tobacco industries, right? When they regulated this in Brazil, for instance, and they had many stuffs like marketing, legislation, taxation, and everything else coming up to the tobacco industry. And nowadays, everybody that wants to smoke cigarettes still smoke cigarettes and buy the regulated smoked cigarettes. There are some people that just buy the gray market cigarettes, but this is going to happen in all markets. So I think if I could give my 2 cents here in this discussion, is a matter of time to see the behavior changing. And of course, as Jess mentioned, the AI features would help you guys a lot, because we can give you more like substance to, monitor these kind of things, and more jobs for the compliance officers as well.
I just, on that, it is hard to convert players, especially who are accustomed to using a certain operator in a certain way. But like it's also the same as sort of rolling out any new tool that you do in a market you're already in. There's just a level of communication you have to provide to your customers, right? You need to email them, you need to text them, you need to email them again and again and again, and you're still going to have your customer service teams be ready for when they all call and go, what are you talking about? You didn't warn us, even though you did. So what we've seen a lot in Brazil, for example, is moving to that regulated market was a lot of marketing campaigns. This is what's going to change. This is what you need to do to be ready. Like, don't be surprised. Did it stop the questions from coming? No, but it still sort of helps, at least some people make that transition. And I think really being compliance needs to work with all aspects of the business. And this is an example of how you need to work with your marketing teams, right? In terms of how do you get that message out? How do you convey the change in a way that's understandable and not overwhelming? Because that conversion of players to the legal market is what will determine success for
Exactly.
Brazil or really any country.
Exactly. Yeah, we're almost in the end. I still have some questions. I think we can jump in another one more, and talk a little bit more about what would be the challenges under the litigation and demanding on the claims perspective in Latin countries, right? Because together with the regulation, we have all this like educational side from the regulator / from the customers. And we also have responsible gaming, new rules and everything, new policies, but we also have the other side of the coin. That's the claims popping up, right? Especially for Brazil, like we see that we are a very demanding, a very highly litigation country. I don't know about like other countries like Peru, Argentina, US, but I think it's part of the package as well. And I think I would like to hear a little bit more how the shoes of the operators must be ready for this run, right? Because this is gonna happen at some point, right?
Yeah, for example, in Colombia, I think that the Latin and American cultures and countries are very complaining style. I think that is part of the culture.
Of course they are.
Part of the culture, and I think that many times they try to take advantage of operators making up things. So I didn't make the bet. Was my friend that entered in my computer? I didn't do this. No, I am not a minor, and we do all the recognition. Your customer with facial recognition, for example, in Colombia, and sometimes we saw videos that they put a person, say that you are, and it's another person managing. So these type of things happen. And of course, we have claims, and we have a very big customer service team, like the first layer for this type of claim that in Colombia are usually petition rights and tutelas. But we manage very well. We know it's the superintendents of industry and commerce that deal with that. I have some lawyers working on that, and so it's something manageable. When we were exploring Brazil, one thing that one of the local outside counsel told us is Brazil will be very interesting because they can file customer claims in the town where they live. And Brazil, we know that is huge. It's like a continent. And they say this, you will see a lot of customer claims that in a very isolated place in Paraná state or in Recife, in Pernambuco or wherever, and you will need to sustain that, to defend that. This for a foreign operator is scary because we know the population of Brazil. So I would like to learn from you, from June, that what is your perspective about this? Really, we need to expect in Brazil like a Pandora box of claims everywhere and go running to one hearing to the other hearing, like to have a helicopter and going through all Brazil.
Yeah, this is indeed perhaps the biggest challenge of especially for international operators who are not exactly accustomed with the way that Brazilian deal with claims, right? Or Latin America in generally speaking, because as you mentioned, Beatriz, Brazil is it's a continent-sized country, and it's indeed very difficult to manage all the claims that will pop up like everywhere all the time. It's really important to have a really comprehensive network of lawyers. Unfortunately, this is a cost that all the operator will have to bear, right? Because unlike in US, we will not have like a multi-million indemnification to be paid, for example, right? But on the other hand, there will be a massive amount of small claims to be handled, and it costs for the operator, right? Because it's unfortunately it will be necessary to involve thousands of lawyers, like one lawyer in each city at least. So it will be very difficult to manage. But on the other hand, the good thing is that the courts are digitalized, are online. You can follow whatever is happening with your case via internet. So this is something that we don't find in all jurisdictions. So this is having like and that there are many service providers that can offer services of monitoring new claims and so forth. So the technology may help the operator in this sense as well, in this process of monitoring whatever is happening in a really small city court, what kind of claims more common. So it's possible to study what will be the possible behavior of the bettors in a given city. What's the likelihood of a given judge deciding in how a judge will decide your case and so forth. So there are many tools available for the operators that may help in this work of handling thousands and thousands of new claims that will pop up like every day from everywhere. But it's an additional cost that many operators might not be initially considering when they decide to come to Brazil. But this is certainly one of the biggest challenges that they will face.
Okay.
I don't know if somebody else on the panelists has any comments on that. We are 5 minutes to finish. I had 2 more questions, but I don't think we have much time left to explore another topic. But yeah, I mean, all this to say that, I mean, it seems that not only for Brazil, but all the Latin countries, we might have a very busy year coming out. Lots of regulations popping up, and of course, once we have one market coming out and being regulated, we might see movements from other countries and talking to each other. And as Beatriz mentioned, all the regulators is natural, and it's healthy to have this communication, this exchange between regulators. We do expect, hopefully, to have this kind of like intel coming in from outside markets, that might help a lot in Brazil, especially. And that's it. So we have 4 minutes left. We had more than 40 people watching us, so I would like to thank you very much, everyone that joining us this afternoon. Before we finish, I would like to ask the panelists to say a few words for our closing arguments, if I say, before we conclude our webinar. So Beatriz, if you can start, I would appreciate that.
Okay. I thank you. Do you let that we close, like closing remarks?
Yeah, just a few words, like to goodbye words, and then I will give like the last notes and comments for us to conclude. Yeah.
Okay. So I think that is an exciting time for LATAM in the iGaming industry. We can see Ecuador, the decree 1 week ago, legalizing and regulating the sport betting, for example, something that we didn't discuss. Ecuador, Paraguay are many. I think that is a big movement. It's very exciting for at least for the lawyers that we practice this, that we are working with this. We see really a lot of energy and effort. I am very worried about the tax situation in different countries because I think that can really, the regulation instead of help the industry, perhaps can hurt the industry if they continue with, for example, the tax of the bill in Chile, 42%. So it's
Insane.
But I think that we need to collaborate from all lawyers, compliance officers, providers, vendors. It's a small industry. We know almost everybody when we go to the events, etc. But this, for me, is very exciting because change all the time. No, so you have new challenge. You have a lot of new ideas. Our company is a tech company, and you see a lot of innovation. And so this practice law in other areas before, this is very dynamic. And so I am happy to participate in this thing, to try to communicate what I know and to learn from others what I don't know. And so thank you for the opportunity to the New York State Bar Association and to Tosini Freire for the opportunity.
Thank you. Jess?
Sure. I think the word Beatrice used, dynamic, is perfect to sort of describe all of this, right? It's, you know, there's always the rush up to launching a regulated market, but that's not the end of it. There's always changes, there's always learning, there's always new technology innovations or ideas. And, you know, what I've been very pleased with in Latin America is you know, the regulators are really thinking not just about the first year or two, but the long run and how to make it a successful long-term vision for their market. And that's something that's, I think, will serve a lot of those markets in really good stead over the coming years. And it's just an interesting time. It's really exciting. You know, it's a different marketplace, different, you know, different types of bettors, different interests, different ways of betting. And, you know, it's a really great opportunity for this industry all across Latin America, not just in Brazil. And, you know, I'm excited mostly, I think, to see what innovations come out of Latin America that we see spreading to, you know, what we'll call the more mature regions, the markets, because I think they've got a lot to share.
Yeah, I think that for lawyers in general, it will be a really interesting time. The game just started. There will be a lot of work, regulatory work, transactional work, litigation work, work for tech lawyers and so forth. So there will be a lot of opportunity for everybody, right? And finger crossed that the success that we believe that this industry will achieve will actually be achieved, because this may be the starting point for a revolution in the gaming scenario, right? Because I believe that sports betting and iGaming is just the start. We should soon see like land-based casinos, bingos, and other type of games also becoming legalized. We also have the regulation of skill-based games and so forth. So a lot of things to happen yet. But anyway, I think the scenario is really positive and indeed exciting, and really happy that that we are living and witnessing this moment.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
thank you very much for Nisba, Adriana, all the audience, Beatriz, Jessica, for this chat. I really enjoyed this opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. Thank you, June, Jess, Beatriz, again, for your time, for all the contributions, insightful discussions. Thank you for the audience. In name of Nisba, I see that my friend Italo Martins is also in the audience here. He's the co-chair together with me in the Brazilian chapter. So if you guys have any questions about Nisba, let us know. And if you have any questions about gaming, let them know, Jess, Beatriz, and June. Okay, so thank you everybody for the audience, for the patience, for having us this afternoon in your home, in your job, anywhere you haven't listened to us. Hope you join us in the next webinar. And thank you very much. Enjoy your day.
Thank you.